we're going. All right, so you might have to pardon the construction going on next door. Might be a little noisy, but we'll see if we can get through this all right. I wanted to do a little snapshot on Riesling in particular. It's something that we've been making since 2013, and it's been immensely fun to do. Something that isn't Sauvignon Blanc or Chardonnay from Napa and Sonoma. I've worked with a couple different vineyard sites over the years, and I've tried to promote Riesling as this awesome variety. And I know it's tough to get into. I think if you've had our Riesling before, it's usually because I kind of forced you into it. I don't tell you what it is generally before you taste it. I'm like, here, have some delicious white wine. Don't ask what it is because you don't want to know. Because there's always that preconceived notion that it's going to be sweet, that's going to be syrupy, that it's going to be what you drank in college and got way too sick of on, been there, believe me. But, Riesling, I talk about it as kind of my favorite white wine variety in the world because it's the diversity of it. And if there's like one white wine, even if you're like just getting into white wine, even if you're more of a red fan, or you're trying to broaden your horizon on the white wine side of things, Riesling is like an amazing door that you can open. And it takes some time because there are some that can be really geeky, there's some that can be super sweet, there's some that can be super austere. Like it can be a really tough variety to wrap your head around. And from a winemaking perspective, it makes it that much more fun to work with because there's a lot of things you can do. And in particular, the last video we did was a little catch up. We were talking about our Archives Wine Club, and in that club, the shipment, the kind of pre-built pack that we're doing some of our 2016 Riesling, which I'm super, super stoked to share with folks because it is tasting really, really good. But even to go further back, to talk a little bit about like our 13, I know some of you probably have our 14 still hanging around, which are tasting awesome. They've definitely turned the corner into that little bit more of a geeky Riesling phase. We talk about, especially if you're from California, it can be a little bit more tropical. It can be, have some really nice, pretty fruit flavors to it. We've done it mostly in stainless steel for the last few years. Up until recently, we started doing a little bit of neutral oak on it. And it tends to be really bright, really refreshing. But once it hits, from I think in 2013, you're talking 6.5 years old at this point, getting to that 7-year-old mark, which is kind of my, benchmark for drinking Napa Reds. Getting into, older white wines can be kind of a challenge because they get really weird really fast. And you talk about the neighbor's dog. What are you gonna do? And you talk about like Riesling as a variety, for me personally, I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of great white wines in the world because we made a lot of red wine out here. And that's what the family drank most of the time. And basically when it came to like old white wine, you're talking like Burgundy and you're talking Germany. Generally, like in my head, that's where my head goes. And I'm sure there's other great places, but you're talking old Chardonnay, you're talking old Riesling. That's generally where you're gonna go. And it can be tough to, get into those old wines. One, because they're tough to come by, and two, they get so geeky so fast. And even if you have some of our 13 and 14, like now is a good time to like pop one of these suckers open and kind of see where they're at. So if you're hanging on to these for any reason, do yourself a favor and like tomorrow, Saturday, whatever, order some like Thai food and pop one of these bad boys open and just like dive into it. Both the 13 and the 14 are very, very similar as they're tasting right now. I've got that geeky, like petrol-y, we say petrol because it's fancier than saying gasoline kind of aroma, which is something that Riesling just naturally gets, which I love. It makes it super weird and it doesn't really translate to the palate or the flavor at all, but it's very potent on the nose side of things. And like the 13, it's like, it's singing right now on that front. And the 14 is very much the same way. But the 16, getting to the bad boy that's going to be in the club shipment that's going out next week. The 16 is, oddly enough, it's even more amazing than I thought it was. Obviously, I'm biased, but popping it open and deciding to include it in this next shipment was like a no-brainer. one, we only have like 6 bottles of each of these, the older vintages left, and those are for me. Sorry, you're gonna have to come and drink it with me if you want to try them, or you have to have them already. The 16 though is something that is going to be easy to just dive right into. It's got, and I hate doing this because there's nothing like watching someone like smell and taste wine and tell you how it is. It's, for me, it's like the most boring thing to watch, and here I am doing it, so I apologize. But the 16 is just like in this amazing little spot right now where you still get these really beautiful fruit characteristics. It's still a fairly young wine, and it's just trucking along. It is so balanced, so complete. You know, with 13 and 14 being the first 2 vintages, they're definitely, compared to the 16, they're definitely like the rough drafts. They're like really solid, doing well in their own right. But this 3rd vintage that we made was really where we turned the corner with our Riesling program. You get into this in the 18 and the 19 that's going to be coming out in the spring. Like, it's like, okay, we're into the promised land of Riesling production. So much so we brought, I mean, talking about the 18, when we went to Alsace last year, and we shared some Riesling with one of the producers there, and they literally sent me a note via the Instagram to like, hey, they blind tasted us on your Riesling, and we thought it was super out of place and super weird because we're in Alsace. It's supposed to be super minerally, super rich, or not super rich, not super, you know, it's supposed to be super, super lean, super mean. And it was just totally a departure from what we were expecting. And then we learned that it was from California, and they were like, holy shit, this is actually, California makes Riesling like this? It was like one of the best moments I've had in my short winemaking career so far. Was someone from, I think they're from England, that ended up in Alsace, tried our wine next to a bunch of Alsatian Rieslings. They're like, you know, like these Alsatian things are definitely like their own crazy world, but this was really a fun surprise and something cool to try. I was just like, I'm doing it, you guys. We're making good white wine. So anyway, you know, that's kind of where, that's always been the goal, is we're never going to be able to compete and make that style here because we don't have the soil type. We don't have the climate that Alsace has. We don't have, you know, so many things going for us that they do, but in the same sense, we have a lot of things out here going on that they don't have going on. And the resulting wine is going to be something that's going to be very bright, very fresh. It's going to have a little bit more richer kind of fruit characteristics hanging around. And as it gets a little bit older, like this 16 is, it's like those, like that fruit character kind of, you know, softens up a little bit. You get more of those traditional, like richer, kind of earthier tone and like minerally tones really from the wine. And it's just like lights out. I'm so excited to start shipping this out next week. And for the 2018, we're just about through the last little bit of our current release, so that'll go into the library, and we'll hold on to that for a couple of years before we, you know, introduce it back out into the world. Like I said to start, if there's one white wine that I can encourage you broadening your horizons on, it's Riesling, because there are so many dimensions to it. And from this really nice kind of dry, refreshing style, the really austere, minerally style from Alsace, or even if you fancy like a good blue cheese with a little honey on it, with something a little sweeter, boom, you can jump right into Germany. Or if you're, you know, a fan of spicy food, like Asian cuisine, especially Thai food, like good Riesling with Thai food is like the most insane thing in the world. It's ridiculously how awesome they go together. It's crazy. It's really a wine that whether you're by the pool, hanging out, just chilling, or you're pairing it up with a meal, it can do everything. It's so nuts. It's so nuts. Which is why we love making it. And I know it's not your traditional Sauvignon Blanc Chardonnay. It's not your Pinot Grigio. You know, it's something that is very complicated. It's something that can be obnoxious because of how sweet it can be sometimes. It's something that you never know what you're going to get because there's such a spectrum to how Riesling is made. But it's our hope that through making ours and introducing you to it, whether it's the current release or something like we're sending out next week with a vintage that's a couple years older, that we can kind of bring you into that Riesling world a little bit more. So I'm probably, after this, since I am doing the wine tasting like video thing now, apparently, we're probably going to do a couple smaller videos on the individual wines as well, so you can dive into those. So stay tuned for that. We'll jump into the reds as well, and hopefully every club release we'll kind of highlight a wine, talk about it a little bit, and go from there. So the 2016 Riesling for the archives will be coming out next week. Also in that will be some 15 Pinot, some 11 Merlot, 12 Merlot. It's a great little 6 or 12 pack that's going to be coming out. And then we'll start getting to some of the more current releases and new bottlings for us in the spring. So stay classy. Thanks for watching. Drink more Riesling because it's amazing. It's the best. The cheesy, like, end of the video swirl. Oh God.